Hi, I'm Irving. Welcome to Kato and Friend. We open on what looks like the setting for a new Jack the Ripper movie. Night, foggy, lamps shrouded in mist, and where are we at? Willman's Wax Museum. And we have a new feature in the Chamber of Evil. And we're definitely not ripping off an actual place, because they don't have a Green Hornet, and we do.
You approve, Mr. Axford?
Pretty good for someone who's never seen the Green Hornet, Mr. Wilman.
I have your descriptions in the Sentinel to thank for that.
About that time, his partner James Rancourt comes in, giving a tour of the place in its gallery of evildoers.
Colonel Stanhope Lane, who never was a colonel, and who found that buttermilk was the most effective means of feeding arsenic to half a dozen wealthy widows.
Until the day he found one that didn't like buttermilk. She turned him in.
Jimmy the Gun, the Yellow Gang's executioner. By police estimate, he killed over 100 gangsters in the Yellow Kid's battle with Lenny White for control of illicit whiskey and beer. Lenny and the Kid made their peace. Jimmy the Gun was out of work, so he killed them both.
There's a certain crazy logic to that.
The scar. Identity unknown.
Funny how much he looks like you.
For years before the arrival of the Green Hornet, the star of the Chamber of Evil. Urbane, ruthless, contemptuous of the police, he killed by using a white scarf as a garrote. He was never captured. And then, more than 20 years ago, he simply vanished.
The reporters take some pictures, then everyone leaves except Mr. Willman. He's puttering around in his workshop. At least that was his plan. Looks like the scarf had other plans for him. Why kill him? And he didn't do a good job of it because Willman is still alive and can reach the phone. We see the mystery figure walking with a particularly distinctive limp past the pedestal where the figure of the scarf is no longer there. We follow the figure out the door and into the fog, where he's always turned just right so we can't see his face clearly. Then he starts killing indiscriminately for no apparent reason. Like that. I get the feeling he wanted that to happen. If he'd wanted to kill her, he could have found lots more effective ways to get close to her.
He was about 4 or 5 feet away from me. And then he started coming at me with his scarf.
Wait, why is she telling the Sentinel instead of the police? Is that really the first thing she thought? I've got to tell the paper about this?
He walked kind of strange and funny, stiff-like, and his face, what I remember of his face, what I could see of it, it was kind of glossy-like.
Like wax, you mean?
Yes, it was kind of shiny like that.
So he forgot to powder his nose. Reed has someone take her to the photo archives to see if she recognizes anyone. They'll get her full story later.
It's impossible, Mike.
Not to Peter Wilman. He isn't given much of a chance to live.
She couldn't have made that story up.
I was in the squad room with the 21st, passing the time of evening with Sergeant Doyle when she came in.
Okay, she did go to the police first, then Mike buttonholed her for her story. That makes a lot more sense.
Mike, the desk wants you. A park policeman spotted a bearded man. He lost him in the fog, but he found a dead man lying beside a park bench. He said he'd been strangled.
Police cars are patrolling all around the area, but it's hard to see in the fog. And considering his clothes are the same color as the night, it's not surprising that they're getting multiple possible sightings. Police in some of these cities had a little too much latitude with their guns. We saw a cop shoot a guy in the back in Batman, too. And either time, even in 1966, the officer would have been in a world of trouble. The gangster era was long gone and police couldn't get away with that stuff anymore. At least not when the victim was white.
A bullet? Yes. And the clothes are damp.
That was a blood spot. What blood type is a wax figure? They move on to Wilman's workshop. Even lightened, it's really hard to see what he's fiddling with there. In the bottom, he finds something quite interesting.
Who is this James Rancourt who wrote this?
He's Wilman's partner in the museum. Does research and lectures on the tours. There's one piece of information in there that interests me. Vina Rose, the burlesque queen that the Scarf used to date.
If she dated the Scarf, then she should know who he is, or was. Did anybody ever try asking her? And how did James find out she dated the Scarf?
Her real name is Hazel Smith. She lives in a small apartment in the Chelsea district.
What do you want to talk to me about?
Who is the Scarf? What was his real name?
That question threw her for a moment.
I don't know. You see, he always just sort of showed up. And he never made no passes.
Then why did he keep coming back?
Beats me. Unless... maybe it was 'cause I was a good listener.
He'd just show up in her room in the dark with champagne and caviar.
And then he'd start to talk. I tell you, he could just talk your arm right off the shoulder. And you loved it.
About completely ruthless murders.
No. No, never. We never talked about that, and I never believed he did any of them things. He always treated me just like a queen.
The last time she saw him, he said he was going away to be immortal. He wanted people to remember him forever. I think he was a little off his nut. She still won't believe he did the things attributed to him because he was always so good to her. So they didn't really date, he just hung around her and talked her ear off. Under those circumstances, she probably wouldn't try to ask his real name because the question might scare him away. And she liked him. He was good to her, whatever his other faults.
Mr. Reed,
That's right.
I'm James Rancourt.
Mr. Rancourt, have a seat. How would you like to make $1,000 for a day or two's work?
I'd like to make $1,000, Mr. Reed, but I'm not aware of anything I could do to earn it.
He wants Rancourt to write an article about the Scarf, incorporating all his research plus whatever appropriate photos he can find in the Sentinel's files. He says, focus on the question of the Scarf being at large tonight and what it might mean. Rancourt accepts, of course. Hey, in today's money, it's just under $8,000. I'd take it too. I agree, it's not a very good poster. He heads inside to get his research material on the Scarf, only to find the locker broken into and the book gone. He starts to head out when he notices something.
What are you doing here?
They told me he'd come to life tonight. I wanted to see if it was true.
She also wanted to see if he'd remember her. But she realizes this is absurd. It's just a wax figure. She starts to leave.
No, stay. You remembered. That's what's important.
He starts lecturing her about how being remembered is part of immortality.
Jack the Ripper, Bluebeard, Captain Kidd. The great intellects wrestle with the problem of what impelled them to their greatness. And now, Vina, The scarf joins that exalted company.
You're the scarf.
He tries to deny it, but he made a mistake.
You called me Vina. You wouldn't have known who I was if you wasn't. I can hear it in your voice. I can see it in your eyes. You're the scarf.
She's really going to wish she'd kept her mouth shut.
Now you have gained a sort of immortality of your own, because you will be his last victim.
Before he can go to work on her, he's interrupted.
It can't be. It mustn't be. Only the scarf is immortal. Only the scarf. Only the scarf. Only the scarf. Only the scarf.
Yeah, he's having a mental breakdown. Later, he's in Scanlon's office with his court-appointed lawyer. Reed and Mike are watching from a two-way mirror.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes?
when the police found me, was there a woman there? A rather pretty one?
There was no woman.
Then it was a dream.
Maybe it's just as well for him to think that.
One of the cops told me that when Rancourt came to, he insisted he'd been attacked by the wax figures of the Green Hornet and his man.
That could have been a dream, too.
Maybe. When the police searched the museum, they found those two wax figures sitting in chairs in the studio workroom.
That was just to mess with you, Mike. Question, did anybody check Rancourt for a bullet wound to the shoulder? We kind of left that thread alongside the road somewhere, unless we're expected to believe the cop really did shoot a walking wax figure. This whole thing was sloppy. Aside from the bullet wound, why did Kato wait until the scarf was around Vina's neck before he threw his dart? Startle in too bad, and that's a good way to get her neck broken. Throw in the fact that I showed you pretty much every scene where something actually happened and wasn't filler, and the whole thing screams, we know we're not getting picked up for another season and we're rapidly ceasing to give a hoot. We had no action at all with Kato. In fact, except for the scarf going around and trying to choke a few people, we had no action at all, period. I think this one was supposed to be a little more cerebral, but they telegraphed the big reveal when they made the wax figure look exactly like Rancourt with a mustache and Van Dyke. They could have explained that away by saying nobody knows what the scarf really looked like, so they used him as a model because he was there. But again, that's sloppy. We didn't think about things like that, or else the people who designed the wax figures didn't talk to the writers enough, and vice versa. Whatever the situation, I hope next week is better than this. Until then.